Hey, welcome back to Book Talk. I'm your host, Brianca J, and today I'm going to talk to you all about the Jim TRUEBLOOD scene and my favorite book, Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. So, if you are familiar with the work, then you are familiar with the infamous TRUEBLOOD scene. This is one of the greatest scenes in American literature, and it basically features the protagonist, Invisible Man, and he is taking Mr. Norton, the school investor, around the yards, and he introduces him into a poor sharecropper named Mr. Jim TRUEBLOOD. Now, there is a lot of debate about this particular scene, but for me, I'm going to argue that in creating this scene, this father-daughter incest in 20th century American literature, Ellison is subtly defying the stereotypes that equate black masculinity with incestuous bestiality. He accomplishes this by suggesting that TRUEBLOOD may in fact be a trickster figure who weaves a tall tale and satirizes white philanthropy's hypocrisy to successfully shift power relations between white and black men. Okay, so first thing you need to understand is that Ellison is casting TRUEBLOOD as a foil character to Mr. Newton. They're mirror images. So Invisible Man's journey must begin in earnest when he effectively leaves the college and controlled by white men. But first he has to understand a little bit about how these power relations work between white and black people. So the TRUEBLOOD episode, like the battle royale scene, further indoctrinates the young narrator in the ways of racist patriarchal society that bonds together in fear of black male masculinity. A student at the university, he is assigned to show Mr. Norton, a man burdened with the white man's burden, the school grounds. Basically, he's a chauffeur. He's taking him across the school, and he shows him like the old raggedy T buildings in the back. In doing so, while they're working out their things, Mr. Norton shares a personal story about his daughter. His daughter has passed away, and he has a small platinum picture frame that he holds right against his chest and thus in his control, to be seen or not to be seen according to Mr. Norton's own volition. As he described her to the young narrator, he says, which can first be seen as the innocent love of all fathers. He says that his love is like all fathers. And however, that's maybe, but then you start comparing him to the foil character of Jim TRUEBLOOD, the sharecropper, and you know that there is something a little more deep bubbling just beneath the surface. You get very different implication about his relationship with his daughter, and you almost believe that Mr. Norton wants to have sexual relationship with his daughter. Okay, and this is a desire that can be identified in Mr. TRUEBLOOD himself. He openly and without embarrassment, almost gleefully, shares this really nasty account of a rape and incest against his own flesh and blood, Maddie Lou. TRUEBLOOD shares the event, and the narrator is uncomfortable, but Mr. Norton is captivated. The tale of the trickster has got him. He cannot turn away. It is all he can think of. Norton's interest in TRUEBLOOD's story is characterized by an urgency inexplainable only by the assumption that he must have shared a powerful attraction to his own daughter, who is now dead. Norton almost runs across the road to witness the story for himself. He questions how TRUEBLOOD looked upon chaos and was not destroyed. He wants to know, how did you do this? Because I've always wanted to do it myself. The chapter caused great debate amongst critics, most often because it's read as a literal retelling. It is not. Jim Trueblood story reveals an incestuous relationship where a father has impregnated his own daughter, but Trueblood, who was a poor sharecropper, built a career out of sharing these crazy tales to white men. There is great evidence, in fact, that Trueblood is the trickster in the novel, a way for Ellison to subtly defy stereotypes that equate black masculinity with incestuous bestiality. As said, Trueblood is a trickster. He is employed to create stories and bring out the hypocrisy of successfully shifting those power relations between whites and blacks. Some of the evidence to show that this story is completely made up are here, and I'm going to share them with you. The first one being that Trueblood is too eager. Like, he's far too eager to tell this story, and even describes it as having been released. Like, he's releasing something. It's cathartic for him. And we have already learned from them that the sharecropper is a great storyteller. Literally said in the book, he's a great storyteller who captivates his audience all the time. He captivates this wealthy white man as well and portrays the stereotypes, and they are eager to accept it. So by doing this, he also is showing how eager white men are to accept the worst parts of black people. They want to, no, they need to believe that the very worst, so that they can feel the lift of the greatness of getting the white man's burden lifted off of them. And if you want to know about the white man's burden, I'll link it right there. It is a poem by John Keats. So it's exactly what Mr. Ellison is talking about here. After they do that, where am I? So then there's the condition of the women. That's my second piece of evidence. The condition of the women. So in the book it says that she was big with belly. If I was a big with belly, a woman's belly does not grow until the end of her second trimester or the beginning of her third trimester. So that would tell me that these women were at least 6 to 7 months pregnant, yet the cut, the wound above Mr. Trueblood's cheek is freshly open and it has flies and gnats being attracted. Well, think about it. If these women are 6 to 7 months pregnant, yet this gash in his cheek is only a few days open, then we know that this gash was not caused by Kate and something else entirely. This is a part of his trickster ways. You must also consider that even the narrator, as naive as he is, senses there is something going on. He swears that Trueblood looked at me with a smile behind his eyes, direct quote. And after he confesses, I'm not sure what happened, but I felt that something wasn't right. He confesses this feeling of something was not right because there isn't. This man is making up a whole lie to get some what? Some dollar bills, y'all. And so he gets this money from Jim Trueblood. He gets this money from Mr. Norton and puts it in his pocket, and he's gonna go feed his family with it. When you read the story in this light, of course the scene is still decked with sexism, but Ellison does successfully defy those stereotypes about black men, as well as about the true reason behind this philanthropy. And he also shows us that a lot of times when it comes to this philanthropy based on these white men, it's based out of guilt and this idea that they're doing the right thing and helping these people become more civilized, as you may find in John Keats' poem, The White Man's Burden. But what we must learn here is that that's not the case. So you got to understand that Ellison is incredibly obsessed with stereotypes and duality and juxtaposition. So he was very inclined to protect the black man and actually show the naivety and the inability for the white man to see the black man as an individual and a human being just like him. So that's what that scene is about. I know it's really uncomfortable when you read it this way. It makes it very interesting and it's a lot more credible, and it makes a lot more sense for the novel. I hope you enjoyed my research that I shared with you, and I encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to this video and all my other videos, because I love talking about literature, and if you love talking about it too, then you're in the right spot. Please leave me a comment if you have any ideas. If you disagree with me, I would love to talk about it, spar about it right there in the comment box. I appreciate you. Keep reading, keep learning. I'll see you guys next time.